It's 5 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is our meeting number 730 on Tuesday, July 13th. So welcome to everyone. And if you would all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So could I have approval of the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes, and we will go on. I don't see any names. No chairless. So we have no public comment today, but we have admin reports, and we're going to start with the facilities report from Matt Deal. Welcome, our director.
Thanks again for having me. We'll go over another few schools tonight. Again, this is the report done in 2018 by Jim Coleman and Corey Trapp with Architects and Engineering Services. First off is Sandpoint High School. So Sandpoint High School was originally constructed in 1991. The athletic building followed, looks like a year later in 1992. Enrollment's about 940 something students right now. The parking lot's a big issue there. It probably goes back to the way it was originally constructed. So we do, ongoing kind of Band-Aid fixes to that. We did several thousand square feet of overlay this summer to try to prolong the life of that. But it really needs to be excavated and replaced from the below the surface of the asphalt, like rock brought in eventually to have it long lasting. There's a lot of curb and gutter damage, mostly from snow plowing. The parking lot lighting is updated to LED. A little bit of drainage issues around the main school, but it does function. ADA issues, again, like most of the other schools we've talked about, kind of start in the parking lot, continue on through the building. A lot of 1990 standards are a lot different than today's. Everything from little transitions in the parking lot to the there's not the automatic functioning doors at the entry, things like that. Fixture heights. Ventilation is fairly good. Works better now than it has in a long time. Over about 8 years ago, we went and redid a lot of the controls on it. Because going back 10 or 12 years ago, it really didn't work correctly. The report does indicate problems with the ceiling tile in the building. A lot of it's cupped. And so they said that that's from moisture, probably back from when the ventilation wasn't working properly. I don't know if it's in, it could be that, and that's what the engineers say. The ceiling tile is also 30 years old, and it's surpassed its useful lifespan. So that's real noticeable in the building. We've replaced a lot of the carpet with VCT tile in the classrooms, and the carpet in the hallways was replaced years ago and polished the concrete. Most of the roof is in good shape. Most of the roof's been replaced. We did ourselves do some maintenance coating on one section, original roof a couple years ago. We had a contractor do some other coating in problem areas this summer and last summer. Structurally, the building's in good shape, except for the snow load issues, which we do a lot of snow removal on the roof in the winter. There. It's rated at 40 pounds, and we get a lot of snow loading from drifting snow. So we have a snow blower that lives up there, and we try to stay up on it so we don't have to bring in contractors, but if it gets really bad, we have to bring in contractors. Let's see. Security and campus security-wise, and it's not ideal because it's not a campus designed with a single point of entry. you know, there's, you know, people coming, going like to the athletic building and the portables on the south side. We did do some fencing to make, you know, the best we can of that situation out the back. They're good about, you know, keeping doors locked and things like that the best they can. But there, you know, there could be improvements with a big project.
Right.
Other than that, you know, just when I'm thinking about it, when we've talked about these, I've really just talked about the physical condition of the building. Haven't really dove into a whole lot about the usefulness and the practicality of the way, the functional aspect of the building. That's, you know, really more, and I could, but we've mainly been talking about the physical. So
Yeah.
I think the building probably has some functional issues too. And maybe not some of the proper facilities for the programs that we're offering.
Right.
Gotcha.
So that's Sandpoint High School. Any questions on that one?
I just have one. Has the moisture that was coming up through the concrete that kind of was bubbling some of the tile, have we taken care of that?
We still have that problem.
Okay.
Is that in halls or classroom?
It's kind of throughout. What happens is when the building is built so close to the high water table in Sandpoint, and they didn't, you know, if they would have brought up a little bit better and maybe a little better moisture barrier would have helped. But tiny bits of moisture come through, and then it deposits salts and minerals,
Yeah.
and that grows under the hard surface flooring, and so you'll get to see like little bubbles in the floor tile. So that's really,
It's ongoing.
maybe we could, with a major drainage project around the perimeter of the building, which is talked about in this report, might be able to help with that a little bit, but that's a pretty tough one to
Big French
deal
drain.
with.
Yeah, okay.
I had a question. Is there a space problem as far as number of students?
Mr.
That's
This is
more-
more on the functional.
That's
part.
more,
Well,
superintendent's
the-
Mr. Miles and Mr.
I
Allen.
believe the school, not counting the portables, was built for about 900 students. So at 2005, I believe we had around 1,200 students. You know, usually pre-COVID, we've had 1,028 students. So without those portables, which again, we will have to address soon, we would not have space. So it is, you know, but with the portables, we're managing.
Thank you.
There's some other, you know, electrical issues with the building, some of the major switching components that turn on the big ventilation equipment. Those parts and pieces are very hard to come by, and these are like major projects to fix. So that kind of stuff, we do a really good job of maintaining it and special ordering parts when we can, but there's, you know, it could be a project like some of the others, but I would say at this point, it isn't probably the highest priority.
yeah.
So Sagal Elementary was built. Looks like we've got sections of the building built in '66. More sections of the building built in '77. Then in 1988. Then most recently in 2009. About 264 students there. There is room in that building for more.
Okay.
Good separated bus and parent parking on the outside. The parking lots are in fair shape, the curbs are in good shape. It's not without drainage issues, but it's better. It's fairly good. We have done big trouble with some of the valleys leaking on the roof. We've gone in and done maintenance coatings on those valleys. And that has really worked well. That was like 4 years ago, and we've monitored those and used the same system now at a few other schools because of the way it's held up. Ventilation-wise, the main building's in good shape. You know, there's portables in the back, and that's a whole nother. There's a portable with bad ventilation, but the main building has pretty good ventilation. More modern boilers from the 2009 era. It's a solid building. Definitely like Kootenai. It's in better shape, and the parts that have been remodeled have been done correctly. The technology department did a good job putting a camera system in there. You know, there's acoustic treatments in the gym. We're getting ready to put a sound system in the gym that PTA is sponsored. That'll be nice. Not without the need for some, you know, deferred maintenance cut.
I have a question
Yeah.
here. You mentioned portables, and in here, they're in poor condition and should be removed from site, and they're not really needed for capacity. Has that ever been, I guess I should address this to you.
Well,
Have we ever brought it up that if they're not needed for,
They're there if we do need them.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I don't know, Matt, I don't want to speak, but I would say they're probably in better condition than the ones at the high school, the 6 that are in a row, or are they about
Real
the same?
similar.
Very similar?
Oh,
Okay.
okay,
Real
well,
similar. We are
I see what you
planning
mean,
to
though.
put ventilation in those.
okay,
And what we're doing in buildings like portables, we're doing like a wall mount ventilator that brings in air and exhausts air all at the same time. You plug it into the wall, it installs pretty quick, it's not super expensive. So we're trying to keep the
Use
costs down on a building that might not be worth spending more on.
Right.
And on our bigger ventilation projects or on our main structures
Yeah.
that we're gonna have for a long, long time. So we're very aware of the building and how we're treating it.
and I realize I implied that this was your statement, when in fact it's the statement in the document that
Right.
Right.
isn't necessarily your statement, yeah,
And
okay,
they do use this, they use the space.
yeah.
Schools are very good about using all the space available to them.
So Matt, while you're here, I know we've had some work being done in Clark Fork on the
Yeah.
front of the school. Could you
Yeah.
give the board an update of where we're at with that?
Yeah, well, when we did the structural assessment out there, because we've noticed some cracking and different things with the old foundations on that really old
Old facade.
section of the building that's been remodeled now, and you wouldn't think it was remodeled in the 80s, but we did notice the opportunity with some cracking for some water to get in, and it was recommended at the time that we fix that, so we had a company come in and do a lot of repairs on the front of the building and then painting at the same time. So that work's complete.
Okay.
Sweet.
So then, next school I have is the Homeschool Academy. This
I
said-
have a question
Oh,
about
yeah.
parking in Sago.
That's so good.
In here, it says it's adequate, but if you've ever gone to a nighttime function, people have to park on Sago Road.
Yeah,
There's not enough parking for
You
when
know, and I
have
think-
a nighttime
and I
function.
don't know that when they design these things, I don't know that they build the parking for the 3
Events.
nights a year that you have the biggest event.
Right.
I think at the cost of the parking
Yeah,
lots.
it becomes quite a safety hazard.
Yeah,
All the parking
I
on
could
Sago
see
Road.
That's
that could be
true.
an issue. During the average school day, though, the lot's about half full.
Yeah.
So the
I think
homeschool-
that's true of all the schools.
Yeah, yeah. The Homeschool Academy, this says it was built in 55. I think it's an old Farragut building, if I'm not mistaken. So it might have actually technically been built way before that.
Yeah, and
But
moved there.
I'm
in
not certain. We
55.
don't have construction drawings on it.
Okay,
So, you know, there's no curbs or sidewalks. It's a gravel lot. So there's certainly ADA issues there, like most of the other buildings we've talked about.
Yeah.
The wood siding's recently painted. We painted it before we opened the school back in 2018. And we
Oh,
put in
right.
new windows at that
Yeah.
time. The roof's low-end delta rib sheet metal over cedar shakes. So that's not really a good combination, because when we go up there and do maintenance, it's hard to get the screws to stay because they're going into a cedar shake, and the cedar shake is obviously splitting. But it is watertight. There is no ventilation system in that building. It's radiant heat. It does have a newer boiler, but it's radiant heat, so that'll be also addressed in these projects we're doing. with some fresh air. We do have a fire alarm in the building now. At the time of this, we didn't. We didn't have exit signs in the building because we were all in process when they did this report.
That's right.
We did that before the school opened. There's no real proper intercom or proper clock system in the building. The electrical is old,
Sure.
but it functions. We're removing the one wall that Ms. Rossman talked about, which
Right.
presented to you to make a little bit bigger room.
Yeah.
So that's in process now. They do talk about the hallways being narrow, real limited restroom facilities for the amount of people, for the amount of students she has. The architect rated the building in poor condition, but it is functional.
It's just an old building.
Any questions
Yeah.
on the Homeschool Academy? Now,
I was like,
if
are you
I
hitting
could have
another?
another 10 or so minutes, I can finish the last 3 buildings and wrap it all up. District office, maintenance, and the bus garage.
Go. You're on a roll.
Okay.
All right.
So the maintenance bus garage was built in 1986. I believe the land is a 1-year lease or a 100-year lease or something. We don't own the land. It's county land. There's some drainage issues. It's a gravel lot, so we're constantly maintaining that.
Yeah.
All in all, it functions pretty well for what we're doing out there. We could definitely upgrade the lighting where the buses park and the outlets, because that all heaves and hoes and tears the electrical apart, and we're constantly working on that.
Is that a secure lot?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's actually barbed wire
Okay.
and locked.
I drive by it all the time, but I just,
You've never tried to get in.
I've never gone in and unplugged buses, to
And
get
we
out
work
of a test, but.
we work with technology on putting a camera system in there too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Do
all in all,
we,
Wait.
if it
do we pay
functions.
the county for, do we pay the county to use that?
I don't see any bills for it.
I'm not aware of any.
Heating
Now that
system in the
it's-
building is fairly new. That was actually part of the last stimulus back in 2010 or whatever, 2011. Well, we replaced the heating system in that building. Lighting's been upgraded. Flooring's in decent shape. That's all I've got on maintenance and transportation. Child nutrition in the back. Proud to report last year we did put in a bathroom there.
All right.
So they don't have a porta potty anymore. I think that department had a porta potty for like 20 years or something. They do have a bathroom now. That facility.
Okay, so
with
that's
the-
fixed.
With the volume of food that even on a normal year is really struggles to keep up, really struggles. Just space-wise.
Okay.
There's so much that comes in and just crams the freezer. It makes it really difficult for proper body mechanics when lifting and that kind of thing. It's a real chore to warehouse everything in and out of there.
Right.
It's just space-wise with the volume, it's inadequate, but it's a metal structure, metal roof, doesn't leak, solid. So that's child nutrition. Now the district office is a concrete tilt-up building. I mean, solid, you can't get any more solid than that. It's got, the roof was replaced probably 7 or 8 years ago. Functionally, I think there could probably be improvements, but physically the building's in good shape, nice warehouse. ADA-wise, definitely could use some improvements. The bigger, well,
That's why we're
We're
here.
here.
That's why we're
right?
here.
Exactly.
So the area upstairs where you can house a bigger meeting really doesn't have good ADA access. And acoustically, doesn't work well for meetings,
Right.
with the warehouse being
Open.
Yeah.
open. The ventilation units on that building are original and definitely past their useful lifespan. And that's also one of the things we're looking at to replace the equipment. I really don't have anything else on the district office. You work there, do you have anything? That
Yeah.
building too has some very inadequate snow loads. That's also a snow load project. I think parts of that building are 35 PSI, pounds per square foot rated. And that's really low. Really low for around here.
Okay.
What would
It's
be,
flat.
just out of curiosity, what would it be if you wanted to build a commercial building out in the county right now?
I don't,
PSI, or,
yeah,
Yes.
I know residential in town is, I know 55 now, but I
Okay.
think most people build higher than that.
right, okay.
And you
70.
start getting out in different areas, it definitely goes
Goes
up.
up,
Like,
right.
there's that shelter that the PTA sponsored that we built out at Northside. I think it's rated at 105.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
Well, then, you've talked us through this book, right?
that's the packet.
Okay. Thank you for, over the course of these meetings, catching us up to date on the state of the
Thank you
buildings.
for lending your ears to listen to it. I'm
Yeah.
glad you're interested in hearing.
Some of it good, some of it not easy to hear, but hey.
It's just
But
reality.
again, to reiterate what has been said in other meetings, your maintenance crew has done an amazing job of not only reacting, but being proactive on a lot of situations and keeping the buildings functioning and open. So we really value your team and you. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay. And now we're going to have a update from our technology director, Matt Brass, regarding our Chromebook filters.
And if I could just interject.
Absolutely.
I invited Matt here to talk. We had public comment in our last meeting concerning, our technology and the safety of our technology. And I want to thank the patron for coming in and having a meeting with us, with Mr. Brass and James Kaler over the concerns. I don't think maybe we solved everything, but I think we have some more clarity. And so I kind of wanted to invite Matt here to, number one, let you know what he shared in the meeting. And so you have a better understanding of our filter system for our technology and how it works. And then also, the services that our IT department can provide. So with that,
Okay.
I will turn it over to Matt.
All right, so I just finished year 5 in this position. When I started, we had a company called Lightspeed who provided our internet filtering. When I came on board, we were due for contracts, so we went and we looked at multiple others, and we chose a company called Smoothwall, and that's who we've had for the last 5 years. There's really two things. Number one, we have to have a filtering system in place. There's just too much out there to let it go rampant. Number two, there's a requirement that we have a specific level of filtering for kids, even qualify for our E-rate programs that I can talk about all the time. So Smoothwall falls under that. It is a secure system. We do audits on that frequently throughout the year. So first off, if there's a case where we hear that something came across a kid's screen and we need to know what it is, they have logs for every student. And those logs typically last 4 to 6 weeks, and that really just depends on the load of the system. The system has a multi-terabyte drive, and as the logs get older and the new ones come in, the old ones flush out. So during the summer, we'll still be able to get quite a few logs even toward the end of the school year, but once school starts and everyone's back on again, that window shrinks back down to about 4 to 6 weeks. We can run reports on overall what's been being searched and blocked all the way down to an individual student or anybody who uses our network. If they're a guest, it shows up on the guest network. In our Wi-Fi system, which the Chromebooks rely on because they're wireless devices, each layer of that has different security restrictions. So we have our guest network, and that's typically throttled by speed, and also they're given the most restrictive. So if you don't log in with your LPO staff account on your devices, you'll be given the most restrictive. And then it works back to there's a student network on our wireless, then there's a staff, and then technology keeps one open pipeline that only we can access for specific devices that you can't authenticate with. So those are that takes over the wireless. The Chromebooks, every Chromebook that's logged in has an extension that's required that automatically kicks on that then goes over to our filtering system. And in that filtering system, there's kind of there's the wireless, there's Google, which all of the students and devices are in organizational units, we call them, and so we can do specific security restrictions based on those, based on whether you're a 7th grader at the middle school or 1st grader at Sagal, a high schooler at Sandpoint High School. And then mostly what that controls is on the Chromebook you can have extensions or programs that you can install, and we go with the most restrictive so that you can only install an extension or program on a Chromebook if we allow it. And so we have a list of allowed programs, and a teacher may call and say, there's this math program we'd like to look into, or a PDF reader. And then we install that, we look at it and make sure that it doesn't have any security issues with it. Something that's like entering malware on the system or advertisements that people shouldn't see. And once it passes our test, then we install that on the network for that particular person. Or if we feel like it's good for the whole network, then we'll put it on the network. And then all the way over to the filtering system, there's an extension on the Chromebooks that's specifically from Smoothwall. And if you don't authenticate with it, it shows red, and that gives you the most restrictive environment. If you are authenticated on it, then it gives you the authentication of where you should be. So staff gets a different one from students. Students are broken down over grade levels, so 9 through 12 have a slightly different experience than 7 and 8, have a slightly different experience than K through 6, which makes sense. If you're doing a report as a 12th grader, you should see different information than you would if you were a 3rd grader.
Right.
Then if we hear of anything that comes up, that's when we will usually do an audit. In our tech department, we have 6 technicians. We'll grab Chromebooks, we'll log in with our test student accounts, set those to the classroom or the grade level of the person who reports the problem, and we'll go and we'll see if we can emulate it. And then we'll also go into Smoothwall, we'll pull the logs of that individual person, see what they were doing, see what they were blocked on, and we can also give that, so parents who come and contact us, we can say, okay, this is the whole list of what your student was viewing, and then this is the list of the blocked information. And sometimes it's hard to wade through because when you load up a web page, it's not just a singular web page. There's hundreds of web pages behind it that load up your JavaScript, your images, your cascading style sheets, all of it. And so you have to go through and say, well, on Amazon, there's 480 entries for the last 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Because there's all of the back-end files also going into it. So, saying all that, there is a realization that kids are always trying to find a way around it. And so Smoothwall does offer updates frequently, and they do those automatically. So if somebody starts a website, and it's a private website, it takes a while for the network to crawl through and even know that it's there. So that's what they're constantly doing. They're constantly trying to find websites and services and things like that, and put the stop on those. If anything comes out during the month that we find out about, we add that to the block list. There's a block list that you can throw up there that just blocks everybody, no matter what it is. And there's also an ad list, so that if there is something out there that a teacher needs to see that's valid educational content, then we add that to the list. But it's something that is ongoing and will never be complete. It's something that we work on frequently.
Right.
So,
Moving target.
yeah. I mean, does that answer the questions that you guys have?
Yeah,
Or
and
what more do you have?
you know, we heard in public comment last week that Principal McLaughlin had refused to look at the contents of a student's Chromebook, and I don't know, possibly
I
Superintendent
followed
Hall-
up with that. I
Okay.
think there was a communication piece. Maybe during that time, the meeting with the parent, they didn't look at it, but Mr. McLaughlin did meet with the student and go through the screens. And I think, and I also want to, and I don't think the communication got to the parents that had occurred. So,
Is that the kind of thing that's documented that you can look back on and say, yeah, that happened?
You mean that a certain site was visited? Yeah.
Yeah.
If we know about it within that
Yeah.
4 to 6 week window.
And
Right.
I think I also want to just let you know that we take things serious and as we're always partnering with parents, and we do have occasion where we have parents who do not want their kids to have a Chromebook. Sometimes they don't want them to have a Chromebook that they take with them. So it's a check-in, check-out. And so, one thing we'll be working with our administrators, coming back in August is just to remind them of those, partnering with parents, and that, how do we use technology the best that we can as a learning tool, but keep it at that as a learning tool. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate the update. It was thorough and gives us a pretty good window into what filters are in place. And do you guys have any more detailed questions for Matt?
No, thank you.
No, I
I
appreciate
just want to appreciate their team that, again,
Yeah.
I think you told us in the meeting that there's never anything that's 100% foolproof, but I feel really good about our team, that our IT team that takes it very seriously and, wants to partner with parents and to make sure that we are keeping students digitally safe the best that we can.
And two-way communication is always best, because there is a hole in the system. And you have to know that.
So, and we do digital citizenry. That's as much as though there is always going to be somebody who's going to be pushing the limits, but we do want to keep kids digitally safe. So,
Right. Okay, well, that helps. That brings some clarity to that conversation. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
So we had also heard at our last meeting concerns of students accessing pornography on their own phones on the buses. And, as a board members, we all wanted to follow up on that, find out how prevalent it is and what we're doing moving forward and those kind of things.
So I guess I would just invited James Kaler here, our transportation director, and he also met with the patrons and to have this discussion. And
Okay.
we do not have Wi-Fi on our buses, so we cannot, from school devices, you cannot access things. But the question in play is if a student has their own device, their own phone, where do we, where is that
Where's the
over,
boundary?
reaching?
Right.
And I've been on both sides of it. I've heard from parents that these are my kids' phones, please
Respect
don't
that,
touch
right.
it.
Yeah, right.
Basically to, in our instructional time at school, we have a no cell phone policy unless it's used as an instructional tool, and we have that policy, but a bus provides a little different situation. So I've invited James Kaler here to talk about our policies.
And James is our transportation director.
Correct.
And thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So good evening. The topic was bus safety. I didn't know.
Bus safety is a little more yeah.
Right.
Do you want me to go into the cell phone piece more? Or
Why don't you give us the overview of bus
Okay.
safety, and then we can hit on this one specific
Sure.
topic, which is a piece of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everything we do with school buses revolves around safety. We design the buses. They're bright yellow. They have flashing lights, all that stuff. So everything is designed for safety. It is, according to NHTSA, which is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, it's 70 times safer for a student to ride a bus than to drive in a car to go to school. So we're the safest way to go to school. Our department is very policy driven. We have our own handbook, which is board approved. Last year we revised it and we made some changes to student discipline and to the accident review process, and then some other additions, and then you approved that last year in August. So it's just recent. Our handbook is just recently updated.
Yeah.
As far as safety goes, all of our drivers are expected to attend at least a minimum of 10 hours of training per year. So we do what's called a mandatory pre-service training in August, and that's right before school starts. And that's a 5-hour training session for every driver. And then throughout the school year, every month we'll do different training on the third Wednesday of every month. And those drivers must attend at least 10 hours throughout the year, but most of them get way more than that, and that covers student management, special needs, bus evacuations, crisis intervention, pre-trip inspections, all that stuff. So we train and train and train our drivers to increase the safety. In addition, every school bus driver has to maintain a Class B commercial driver's license. They must pass a DOT physical every 2 years, unless they have a reason to do only a 1 year, which is usually blood pressure, and I don't know why school bus drivers would have high blood pressure. But anyway, so every 2 years, at a minimum, they have to get a DOT physical, and they're also subject to random alcohol and blood testing, or alcohol and drug testing.
Yeah.
So we do that randomly through the year through a third party. So they'll send us the list, and then we send them to get tested. As far as, that's kind of the general overview of the bus safety. Is there anything you'd like to elaborate on that?
We're going to touch the seatbelt issue. I know that's come up here and there. And the last I recall, we were just going to look into it.
Yeah.
That's
And,
at the bus
unfortunately-
purchasing level.
Unfortunately, the one that brought it up isn't here.
Yeah.
We passed it, but it was just to kind of take a look what the cost would be and whether it's a viable option in the future.
Well, right now, I think there's bids out for bus purchase, and that's when we're
Correct.
gonna, yeah.
So the bid will be published, Kelly's going to publish
On
that
Thursday.
bid on Thursday.
Yeah.
I sent the specs to the vendors with seatbelts and without seatbelts.
Okay.
And then we'll get those and we'll compare them and look and see if that is a viable option.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
What are
Okay.
you doing for railroad safety?
Oh, we're gonna actually, it's not a dialogue with the congregation, with the patrons. It's just a meeting with the trustees. So, are there other questions for James?
If I could just say, if there
Yeah.
are questions from the audience, please send them to either James or we'll
Yeah.
get them answered.
Email.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
So the most recent concern with bus safety was mentioned at our last board meeting, and that had to do with inappropriate cell phone usage on the school bus. Our current policy states cell phone usage is prohibited except with driver permission and no flash cameras. So that's what the policy states. It gives all authority to the driver. The driver says you can use the camera or you can use the phone, or you may not use the phone. In addition, we sent out a brochure to every student and parent that includes phone usage guidelines and encourages parents to use parental controls on student phones, restrict access, monitor browser history, and that I brought an example of that just so you can see what we send. This goes to
Oh, good.
every student. It's in the middle, but
Great, thank you.
and that's at the
Oh, yeah.
beginning of the school year.
Okay,
So that's something we want to proactively do, is say, hey, this is our policy, but it is a mutual thing. Parents need to be involved with that monitoring and restriction
Right.
of that stuff. I don't know how many parents want students to have phones on school buses, but I'm going to guess it's most of them. That's just from my experience. And I say that only because it's instant communication when there's a bus delay. It's instant communication on, I need you to get off at grandma's house now. All that stuff, because otherwise it has to go through a process. They have to call the bus shop, talk to the dispatcher. Dispatcher calls out to the bus. Bus finds the student while they're driving down the road. Hey, can you do that? And then it has to come back. And so it really does speed up that process. Parents like to be able to know, why is your bus delayed? Oh, we're stuck behind a train for the last 20 minutes, that kind of thing. I've been in this position for 7 years. I've had 2 reported incidents of inappropriate usage of cell phones.
okay.
One was in March 2nd of 2020, and that was with Mrs. Blair. And so I followed up on that. I document those kind of incidents, and so I looked back in my notes, and I went out to the school that day. I spoke with the principal, Kathy Brigette, And then we spoke with the students and said, you know, what did you see? One student said, I didn't see anything. And the other one said, well, I heard the kids in the back talking about it. So I didn't have a name or anything to go off of to do anything with. So what I did was I went onto the bus and I just said, hey, this is our policy. I talked to the driver so she was aware of it. And I said, this whole bus could lose their privilege if the policy's not followed. I didn't have any reports after that. I did have another report, so that was in 2020, and then this May, I had a report from the same bus route, and it was with a student that was new to the district, and it was reported that she had shown a student something inappropriate with her cell phone. We contacted the parent was very compliant, and looked through the history, did confirm that there was something inappropriate on the cell phone. We suspended the student off the bus for 3 days. We had a reentry meeting, and we determined that the student could ride again with no cell phone, and the parent enforced that for the remainder of the school year.
Okay.
But those are the only 2 times that it's been reported. I don't know if it's happening on every bus because, like I said, it's not being reported. So.
Sure.
So I think we had a productive meeting with Mrs. Blair last Thursday. We talked about, you know, what can we do to proactively fix this issue, or at least make it better and safer for the kids. We talked about the possibility, you know, she was asking about the possibility of collecting cell phones. The driver could collect cell phones as they enter and then give them back when they leave. There's a few logistic issues with that. One, the cab of the bus is designed to not have any loose items. If you go into a bus, everything is strapped in. So where do we put them? You know, do we put them in seat 1, in a seat belt? I don't. So where to put these things in the driver's area so that they would have command and control of that would be a state issue. They wouldn't allow that. Another issue is that phones are delicate and very expensive. And the driver is in control of these expensive items, and something occurs, you know, something gets damaged, where do we go from there? So that's another concern I think that the driver has. They've already got a lot going on, and now they're in charge of $40,000 worth of cell phones. It's you know, of other people's personal items. It's problematic, I think. What we did talk about though was signage. I want to add to that brochure that I showed you. I want to add in there to that little blurb where it says cell phone, to report inappropriate cell phone usage.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because I don't know that, because it's not being reported to us. So I think that's a huge step forward is telling the kids and telling the parents, report it to us so we know it's happening. So then, you know, we can do something about it.
Yeah.
We're also going to make signs. We have what does get reported to me more often than anything is either harassment, bullying, fake devices, that kind of stuff. So we want to make a little magnetic sign that goes in the bus that says, you know, report XYZ to bus driver, you know, bus shop number, parent, whatever. And we can add in there inappropriate cell phone usage. So that way it's up in each bus, and it, you know, and it reminds students, hey, if you see inappropriate stuff, report it, and then that way we know it's happening.
Right.
And they can report it in an anonymous fashion.
And it can be, and that's right. It can be reported anonymously because it can be intimidating to be that student who has something to say but they don't know how to say it.
And on top of that, there's cameras in every bus. Remind these kids, hey,
Correct.
you're gonna look at the camera, and if you're sitting in your seat, looking like something fishy's going on, you're gonna get busted.
So I'm going to, that was my next point, so I thank you for leading me into it.
Yes.
So we upgraded our camera systems in 2018. So all the new buses have been receiving the new wide-angle cameras. They have better quality, better audio. And I just have an example of what the old system looked like and what the new system looked like, so you can see these are screenshots from 2 of our buses.
This is the new one on top of that.
The old one is on top and the new one is on the bottom.
Whoa. Okay.
So the new cameras, the old cameras, you could see like seat 1 and 2, and then as it gets further back, you can see their heads, and then you can't see anything.
Right.
of course, we'd have those cameras in 3 spots. What we did with page 2 was we have 4 cameras that are located on each one, and they look into the seats in a wide angle fashion, and you can see a lot more than what
Yeah.
we used to be able to. Are we going to be able to see what's on somebody's cell phone? It could be difficult, maybe not, but we'll at least be able to see if there was something going on in there, if
Sure.
it's reported to us.
Yeah.
And then finally, the last thing that we did this past year to address some of these issues, or at least make things a little less, or a little more safe for the younger kids, was we started transporting middle school with high school. So now the elementary, we do K through 12 in the morning. There's just really no option other than that with our system. So we bring K through 12 in the morning, but in the afternoon, the elementary are riding home without secondary. And so that's, unless it's an in-town route, but, so that's helped a lot, I think. We, just as an example, and I don't know if this is, I really don't know what created the low amount of discipline that we had this year, whether it was the masks or whether it was just the whole dynamic of it. But moving secondary off of elementary, I looked at the discipline count. We had 41 suspensions this year compared to 87 the previous count. So it was less than half this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's pretty significant. So it was a good year.
Yeah, that's encouraging.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the updates, and I didn't mean to pin you on just this one issue, but it is part of the larger picture of bus safety, and I feel like your program is really covering all the areas of safety for our students. And are there other questions that you guys have about bus safety for James? Do you have anything to add to that conversation? I feel, thank you very much for presenting to us.
Sure. I'd just like to mention there was a nice article in the Bee
Oh,
on the
yeah.
transportation manager
Yes.
being the best in the state.
I think it was
Yeah.
Shelley.
Shelley.
Shelley got
Yeah.
an award for,
Yeah, the Idaho Transportation Supervisor of the Year.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So-
terrific.
That was long overdue.
Yeah.
She's been in there for a long time, and I was really happy to see her get that.
That's terrific. Well,
Yeah.
tell her congratulations
I
from
will.
us. It was a good reminder, Gary. So we'll move on in our agenda to the consent agenda. I'll hear a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion from board?
No.
No. Motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We are going to move on to, is Chris Knowles here?
No.
Okay, so you're going to address the permission.
Yeah, and this is
permission of
just
use.
annually, every year, the Idaho High School Activities Association wants the school board to give permission to use safety equipment for summer workouts.
I'm getting
and
there.
summer there.
Hold up.
Outside of the regular season, so really it's just your approval. This is something that happens every year.
And we do hear this every year, so.
I make a motion to approve. Just go.
Well, I think what
We
we
just
want to do is, the proposed motion isn't there,
Yeah.
but you
I'm-
want to propose,
I make a motion to approve the request for the use of, permission to use the SHS football team to use the SHS football protective equipment for the Board of League Camp, June 14th through the 17th.
I don't know if
That's
that date
July.
is correct. It's
July.
July 14th through 17th.
Is it supposed to be July?
It is supposed to be July. How
I amend the
about,
motion to July 14th through 17th.
is there a second?
Second the motion.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? And no, to your point, we do see this proposal every year and approve it, so.
Yep.
All in favor?
All
Aye.
right.
Aye. That motion passes. Yeah, it took you a while to spit that one out. But now, we would actually like to hear from Clerk Kelly Fisher regarding the resolution for trustee elections.
So every other year, trustees are up for election. This year, we have Lonnie Williams' seat up for reelection. Carrie Kelly up for reelection, and trustee Gary Superger, who is absent this evening. So it's to the board to call for trustee elections, to open that window, essentially, is what this resolution is doing. Trustee election petition and declarations will be open until 5 p.m. on September 3rd. The election date, of course, is now following the general election, which would be held this November 2nd, 2021, and those seats would be filled January 1st of 2022. And the resolution was in your packet. Of course,
Yeah.
I'll have the petition and declaration posted on our website tomorrow. This is the exact petition and declaration. Actually, I just printed it off the state of Idaho's website. The county clerk's office will have the petitions and declarations. Just for a point of information, they must be filed with me, the clerk of the board of the Lake Pend Oreille School District, by that deadline, 5 p.m. on September 3rd.
Yes. No, I'll hear a motion.
Do you want a motion for the resolution?
Yes.
Approve the resolution? I move that we approve resolution 2201, calling for trustee elections.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion on that? All,
Point of discussion, I'd like to just say at this time that my seat will be open. I do not plan to run for reelection. I thought I would step aside and let somebody else have the opportunity to have this wonderful experience working with this board.
okay.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
Well, thank you for spending the time and all the energy and the effort, and you've done a heck of a job, and we're going to miss you for sure.
I'm holding out that I might still change his mind.
Well,
I'm not thanking him
one
yet.
of the things that influenced my mind, the month that I would be off the board is the month I turned 80 years old. So I figured it'd be time maybe to step aside and let somebody else have the privilege to do this. It's been a wonderful experience.
Yeah. Well, thank you for
Thank you.
adding those words.
Yeah.
And do I have it was moved and seconded.
It was.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion for resolution passes. So at this time, we have an opportunity to hear announcements from administration, and I don't know if you want to start?
You know, we already gave accolades to Shelley Johnson.
Yes.
Being recognized from the state transportation
Yep.
department. Also, would just like the board let you know that the State Department of Education did release a template we've been anxiously waiting for, that we now have a little more guideline to officially send our operations plan for the 21-22 school year to them. It's due August 2nd, but you have already approved that operation plan, but we're finally getting the template from the State Department of Education. So.
Perfect. And is there anyone else, principal? School's so quiet, you don't have anything else to say. So with that, I didn't miss any administrators, I don't think. With that, the meeting is adjourned.